article, we covered a little ethics situation in class. And what I've posted for you is the outline from that day, which gives you a little bit of resource and reference material. Okay? So that's the rationale for making sure that you have that. Went into the code of ethics, and then just jog your memory a little bit relative to the articles that you read. So does everybody remember all that? Did you have a chance to kind of dust that off and think about it for a few minutes? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, hopefully. Again, remember that what I posted were the two articles that were in the paper here locally. And then what I asked you to take a few minutes in your break was to take a look at this editorial that I wrote. All right? So there's two reasons for doing this. One, it's closer to a conversation we had last week. Okay? That's first and foremost. Second is, even though I reread that here over the weekend, I'm not really super excited about some of the verbiage that I use, but I think it's always good for you to get an opportunity to take a look at something that maybe is written from the perspective that I did with this. So that's the other piece. And the third and final is Dr. Drunovich, one of the professional engineers throughout the community and a professor here for years and a department head for civil, does an ethics presentation annually. And he says this scenario is a huge opportunity for you to continue to teach your students about ethics. Okay? So, those that had the time and could really focus in on it, what were some things that you picked up on this editorial writing? Or this memo that I wrote that was for the purpose of an editorial? Anything? Yes, sir, Ted.
That's a good question. Did it ever get published or anything?
It did. It did. Part of the reason it did was it was really late to the paper relative to the race that was going on. But because I provided, as they requested, the 250 letters, and I gave them the backdrop and the purpose of why I wrote it, they did make sure that it got published online, which to me is a big difference between being published in the paper and being published online. All right? And that's something to keep in mind when you go through this exercise. Thomas?
Just one thing that you kind of harped on, I think it was in 23, was that kind of the importance of kind of having a non-bias in terms of surveying.
Doing the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll blow that up a little bit. Any other comments, thoughts, what you picked up as you read that? Should I be a lawyer or no? Huh? Maybe. I should have. I wish I would have. I enjoy opportunities when people put things out there and they give me time to truly vet the statement and or the question or the issue at hand, because I'll rip it apart. I mean, I will. I love it. Okay? Now, a couple things I want to point out, and you picked up on 2 or 3 there. One of the things that I did was I did address it to the paper, okay? But I also included local officials. They got copied that night in the email when I sent it to the paper. And that was because they had requested that I get involved and say something about it, okay? So I wanted them to know that I did it. And I didn't want the Journal and Courier, the local paper, to be caught off guard. I wanted them to understand what was going on and the gravity of the situation and who all I was copying and being included in this. Okay, so that's one thing. A little disappointed in myself. Now I increase the size there. A little disappointed in myself here. This is a pet peeve. What did I do here on item number 2? I orphaned a letter or a word. That's a big pet peeve of mine. That's a waste of space. That just looks sloppy. Does anybody else see that as a big deal? But for me it is, okay? So that's a big deal looking back. And again, I tried to make life easy for the paper down at the bottom, and I gave them their 250 words as they were requested so that they could quickly just copy and paste that. I sent it as a PDF, I sent it as a Word document so that the job could be done, okay? And I was very clear and concise with Indiana Code and NSPE, know, code, things of that nature, which we went over last semester, okay? So kind of boring, but hopefully you pick up on some things when it comes to this and how you approach things. Again, I probably wouldn't have done this. This is not my nature by charge to go out and put myself out in front of people, okay? But I did it because I got several phone calls and wanted to make sure that I stood up for something I believed in. The other thing is that I didn't use Purdue, I kind of kept things generic until I needed to when it comes to some of the documentation down here at the bottom regarding my defense of my statements. Okay, now with that being said, I kind of get you kick-started here. Take a look at this letter. Assume you're me in the middle of the summer, okay? So this letter, it is posted, it's the AG letter. Take about 3 to 4 minutes and read that and the documentation that rolled in. And for those that are reading up on the screen, I will systematically scroll. Yes, sir.
So they like sued you?
We'll get to that. I appreciate though that you're gonna be the very first person we'll come to. Going too fast. Okay, we're good? Enough? For the moment? See some heads and berries. Keep reading as we talk. So, Brock, you asked a question. All right? I'm not a lawyer. But I opened up in the middle of June, right? This letter. And I'm like, holy crud. I'm like, I'm being sued. And what it amounts to, basically, is a professional lawsuit, but not in the court of law yet, okay? But I didn't know that. I didn't know what I was really up against. I had no clue what this really meant, all right? So I read this and I'm like, oh my goodness. What are some things as you look at the complaint that jump out at you? Yes, let's start over here.
It says, there's questions like, have you contacted a private attorney? No. Have you started a court action? No. Have you been sued over this issue? No. So it's sort of like a preliminary.
Yes, it's a preamble to that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh great, here we go.
cost them hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. I'm really not a rich man, okay? I am debt stricken, and so I do make good money, but I am always paying on debt, okay? So I don't have anything. I'm like, holy crap, now what? I got kids. I mean, all this is going through my head, so you gotta understand where I'm coming from. All right, what else? What else jumps out at you? Yes, ma'am.
It's talking about an actual transaction or agreement, and then if you notice, they never have a signed written copy of the agreement. He's trying to sue you for something that, or she, for something that you never agreed upon, and if anything coming back legally, you can't be sued. So, and it's saying a transaction for your business, legally, that isn't factual because it wasn't a transaction between you and them that you paid for goods and services. So they can actually throw this out before it even goes to court by mistake form.
Sure. And you're starting where I started next, so, okay. What else?
He's talking about how he wants to have us take in to a board and have it go under professional license record.
Yeah.
Which is violation.
Which is a big deal to me, because I worked hard to get there, okay? I did. Internet. Somebody else.
They don't attach, when they say describing a complaint, and I understand that you're falsely accusing them, there's no attached proof or documentation to prove their claim. There's no date, like, if you had your license, you could say, I obtained my license on this date, or this month of this year, there's no proof, and there isn't a actual cost estimate, and by the fact that they don't want money, you want your license suspended, it sounds like when a sibling's mad and they want to take someone's toy away because the dad got more attention, or you ratted somebody out,
Sure.
so they want to be mean to you.
Sure.
It's a immature response.
That's what you might, yeah, sure.
His email's Michael at beyonddirtracing.com.
I'll explain. Yeah, and I'll explain that. Anything else?
It says, it doesn't say how you pay, it just says other, and there's no like list of. what-
And you know what, the problem with that is, after I started really diving into it, is that this is a general complaint form that can be allocated to businesses as well as individuals like it was. And so that's why some of that is just kind of like not applicable, okay? Yes,
But ethics violation being standard,
yes. That is ultimately what he's getting at, okay? Because, as you see there, at this point in time right there, that's what he's getting at with this segment. Now, get back to your Indiana dirt racing. So, to start with, I didn't know what I was up against, right? I already admitted that. See, Attorney General, I've always heard the Attorney General is a bad thing. We get involved with them, right? Back in the Reagan days, the Attorney General was the guy that was snuffing out smoke and, and cancer and things like that, tobacco. And he was tackling big business, right? So I'm like, holy cow, Attorney General of Indiana, I don't want any piece of this guy. So I calmed down, I made a few phone calls, okay? And while those phone calls are going on, I kind of got my wits about myself. And so I looked at the Indiana dirt racing. Now that's okay, it's not very professional, but that's one of his other businesses. And if you go back and look at the surveyor articles, the two articles, the dust up and the county surveyor race, I think it talks about, he's also got an electrical business that he's going on. So he's kind of a guy in a little bit of everything, okay? That's one thing. Now, who's your complaint against? Again, I'm still pretty nervous, right? Complaints against me. Address not sure, which is good because he didn't get that editorial document, right? Because I gave him the whole memo. But by the time I get down here to my email, I'm pissed. I'm ready to take him on. Why is that, Jonathan?
I don't know. He didn't even take the time to look you up.
No, not necessarily that, Connor.
You're not even paying attention to what he's doing, he put his email in your box.
Exactly. If he's an engineer and he's claimed that in those articles in the paper, okay, so this is where I come into ethics and doing things right and being thorough as an engineer and things of that nature. If you're gonna be this sloppy in the second box, I'm ready to take it down. I mean, I'm just salivating because I know there's gonna be more mistakes on your end. And my point is this, as an engineer, so nobody laughing at this, or,
So you're gonna take him down.
yeah, that's awesome, isn't it? Well, that's what I think of it, you know? This guy came after me and my family and went to the Attorney General. I'm gonna take his sorry butt down. So, as an engineer, my point is this, yeah, it's an email, okay? Yeah, it's this, and this, but we're engineers and we're supposed to be held at a higher standard, not only in the way we present and do the work that we do, but in the level of detail of the work that we do. We can't just be sloppy, okay? When we do something, we should be above reproach on the effort and the work and the calculations that we put into our effort. Does that make sense? That is just the way I feel about it, ladies and gentlemen. So I see this, and this guy, and part of the, going back to the county surveyor's articles, this guy says he's an engineer and that he can do this and he can do that. Okay. So I go off on 4 and 5, you know, those are what they are. Now, interesting, and eventually you'll get my response next week after you respond to this, but I thought that was funny. Brandon printed a newspaper opinion. I didn't print Jack Diddley. General Courier printed it. Come on, you know, so I started getting all excited about this, and once people started calling me back and telling me what my rights and obligations were and what my next step should be, I was more pumped than I was, you know, after I read this, okay? Because I had a defense. I had a way that I felt like I could defend this, okay? I don't think there's anything else in here. But again, in here, when he starts saying hundreds of thousands of dollars in future work, and he wants to take me to the board, after I got done with the phone calls, by the end of that day, I was like, I'd gladly go to the board. I would love to stand up in front of people and tell him how much of a scumball in engineering I think he is. Okay, so it kind of became personal, didn't it? But I was gonna have factual argument to go with that. So your job, okay? You're me. And you kind of heard how I emotionally went through this whole thing and some of the things that I've done and some of my actual thoughts. Your job is, by next Monday, is to respond to this, okay? There's an assignment in there for lecture 11. It's 40 points, pretty straightforward, trying to kind of lead you in the proper way of responding to something like this. You know, obviously there's some feedback, that's simple, I'm always asking for things like that. There's 3 items requested in the letter. Make sure you address that and are very clear about how you address that. I want you to analyze this report in your response, okay? You need to defend a position. What do you think? Is he right? Is he wrong? You know, defend that position. Make a statement, okay? And I'm going to be interested in how you present your statement. And then you've got the 2 heavy points. Kind of going back to last April, using NSPU code, site, and proper use of Indiana Administrative Code, which if you just type in Indiana Administrative Code, it'll take you to the website and it'll get you to the professional licensing agency relative to a situation like this, okay? You need to make citations and references within your response that you need to craft by next Monday, okay? And another thing is, even though an attorney general was pulled in on this and someone made a claim, make no assumption that that attorney general, that individual, knows everything about the situation, okay? And that's why I've given you all the ammunition you need to respond, okay? All right, any questions? I know, it sounds like a boring effort. I'm gonna enjoy reading your responses. We did this with the seniors, you know, last year this time. It was good. I saw some of them, saw that some of them really kind of got into the legal side of things, and maybe that might be occurred from this in the future, so maybe that's a benefit that'll come out of this for you. All right. Not bad on time. Any questions? We have, yes, sir.
Is this issue still ongoing, or is it resolved now?
It's resolved. Yeah.
How'd it come out?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, I had good friends in the right places when it came down to this. And they did not go any further than my response that you'll get next week. So. Yes, sir.
Did this guy like win the election?
No, the current surveyor, he won the election. We don't know if it made any difference, you know, what I did or what he was saying. We don't know, but we felt better in the engineering community that this information, you know, my editorial did go out, so that, you know, people got a little bit better understanding what the facts were. Yes, sir.
Just out of curiosity, who are the people that you called when you picked up the phone after reading the study?
So, yeah, that's a good question. And I'll tell you a few of them, I can tell you all. I called my personal attorney, who then put me in front of, and the only reason I have that is because I got a kid, so it's not like I'm a big league or anything, okay? Don't get fooled. But once you start to get to my age, you do need an attorney that's got your documentation in line. So I asked her, I said, who should I talk to? She gave me one of her colleagues, which I'd worked with him before on some things. And so I called him, and he's like, I really don't know what to do, Brandon. I'm like, oh, great. And then I called Dr. Dorinovich, who I just mentioned moments ago, well-respected engineer, you know, things of that nature. He goes, Brandon, because they mentioned right in here, the licensing board or the PLA and the board of directors, he's on that board. He says, I can't talk to you about this. I'm like, okay, great. But I think in the community that I talked to, the word started to spread. I actually got a call from the county surveyor's office. And I also got a call from a well-known businessman, and that's who eventually connected me with a proper lawyer to take this on. Yep. So I was very happy with the way it worked out. And I learned a lot as I went through it, because my response was actually what I gave the lawyer, and he told me, just as I put at the bottom of your assignment, assume the reader knows nothing about, I didn't say knows, did I? Assume the reader knows, should say knows, nothing regarding the specifics of the situation. That's what the lawyer gave me direction on. So yeah, that's pretty much my point of contact. And then that businessman, he had a spider web of people that I dealt with. So it all worked out. We all had the right interest in any other questions? Handful of presentations next week, safety again. Kind of battling with what to do with the safety that we missed. I apologize to those people. We'll give you some airtime at some point in time. And Brad, I'm still working on McAllister and getting us some equipment time. And so we may have to, the last couple presentations, shift things around, okay? It sounds like we're going to get somewhere on it. You guys have a good rest of the day. Again, don't forget that assignment, your response is due next Monday morning, 8 a.m. You make it happen. Thank you. Grab some more candy.
I'm probably gonna go get coffee. Always a good idea. Yeah, I've been going since 7 a.m. so I need. See you, Lance.